Oh, welcome back, folks. This is another video where I'm going to be in discussion with one of our great speakers at the Membership Success Summit, which you can join and watch live for free. And that will be on the 29th and the 30th of September next week. And that will be totally free. And then we have a paid day, which is really very inexpensive to join, and we will have more speakers and training session plus giveaways and a load of other goodies. I'm really pumped up to have Carolyn O'Brien with us. She's going to be talking about her subject, which is using metrics to scale your online business. It's an important subject. Basically, membership sites, you should be really motivated by your actions, by data and matrix, not totally by your gut, as they say. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Carolyn. You can introduce yourself and maybe give us some of background about your experience, what your company does, and why you chose this particular subject, why it resonated with you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm excited to be here. So my name is Carolyn O'Brien, and my background's in corporate. So I worked for SaaS and tech companies in New York City. And then I started my own business a couple of years ago. It was something I'd always wanted to do. And I started my business working as an online business manager for online course creators. And so I worked with 6- and 7-figure online businesses, and they were successful. They were making money, but they weren't using metrics really to their benefit. Some of them were not using metrics at all. Some of them were too scared to. Some of them were tracking numbers, but not really making decisions based on them. And so I realized that there was really this hole that needed to be filled. And as the business manager for those clients, I decided, okay, I need to kind of take this on myself so that we're looking at the numbers and we're making decisions based on those numbers. Looking back in hindsight, when I worked for these software companies before I started my business, a lot of my role was helping my clients understand the ROI, right, on the technology that they had purchased through this company I was working for. And a lot of that involved looking at data and looking at metrics and helping paint a picture or tell a story based on numbers for why, their purchase of the software made sense for their business. And so I kind of connected those dots after the fact, but there is a lot of parallels of, what I do now to what I had done, back in that corporate career. And so what I help businesses do now is use metrics, but also visualize metrics. So, not everyone is a numbers person, and that's totally fine, because I don't even know if I would consider myself a tried and true numbers person, right? I'm not an accountant, I'm not a bookkeeper, but I know that the power of data will help people's businesses grow. And so visualizing data through dashboards is really what I help businesses do, and hopefully help others feel less overwhelmed at looking at numbers and making decisions based on those numbers.
Oh, that's fantastic. You don't mind me asking, what's some of the technologies or products that you utilize to help people with this visualization, as you just mentioned?
Yeah, so my favorite is actually Google Data Studio. And so it's a software by Google. It's free, so you can use it. But the power of it is that it can connect to a bunch of different software systems. It can connect to Google Analytics. It can connect to Google Sheets. And so it's fully customizable in terms of how you can visualize your data. It's for beginners who just want to connect to a Google Sheet and maybe show just their revenue month over month. And then it can be customized all the way to using Google Tag Manager and having real-time data being shown through these reports.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Like Google Analytics and like a lot of Google products, they normally provide an enormous amount of functionality, but they are very intimidating and multi-layered, aren't they?
They are.
I'm just trying to check on the summit website. I apologize, I forgot. I don't know if you're on day 3, actually.
Yes, I think I'm day 3, October 1st.
Oh, well, that's great, because you're going to be providing a little bit. It's going to be a smaller group, but it will give you the opportunity to show some demos and that peel the curtain a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think it's a fabulous subject for day 3, actually.
Yeah. And, my hope is that people understand that anyone can kind of take this on, right? Your business doesn't have to be a certain size. You don't have to have a certain revenue number. You don't have to love math or be great at math. But really, anyone who has a business, who has an online course or online membership, should be looking at the data in order to make decisions.
So, based on your experience, what are some of the key metrics that people, when they've got a membership site, should be religiously focused on?
Yeah. So, the first thing I always say is you have to look at the money metrics, right? If you're running a business, you have to know, what your revenue is, what your sales are, refunds, expenses at a minimum. Once you kind of tackle that, then I would say look at your, customer journey or your funnel, right? You have to make sure you're getting the volume of people in and that they're converting. And so I always say, because visualization is something that I love and I think needs to happen, is just map out your funnel in a visual way and start to look at every single step along the journey and what numbers you can track to try to help you understand how your funnel's performing and how you can potentially improve it. From there, especially with membership sites, right? Because people come and go, you need to look at the retention. Then you want to look at, how many members are coming in, how long are they potentially staying, what's the lifetime value, how often are they leaving? And so memberships particularly have a good amount of metrics that people should be tracking to make sure that people are satisfied, that customers are satisfied, and that they're staying. And that you're making the revenue you think you're making.
Yeah, because for very understandable reasons, a lot of membership e-learning entrepreneurs that we work with at WP-Tonic, they're all about getting new membership, getting new people, but they don't. And at the beginning, that's precisely what you should be concentrating on. But if when they start building up, they have what I call a leaky bucket. They're proven their business model. They've proven the membership. There's a need for whatever education they're providing through their membership website. So they're getting new people in, but they're getting as many people leaving. So they're treading water. They're not actually, and they're not, because they've got no analytical data, they're not aware of that, and they don't know that they've got a major problem, which can be fixed. But if you don't know there's a problem there, you can't really fix it, can you?
Right. Like, 100 new members, let's say, a month sounds great, but if 120 are leaving each month, then it's not that great, right? And so you don't necessarily know until you start looking at the numbers what's actually happening and where you need to plug the hole, essentially, to make sure that the business is profitable.
Can I just detour a little bit? Because we have a number of entrepreneurs with WP-Tonic, but we also have a smaller but considerable group of medium and a couple of very large companies where they're looking at where it's internal training, and they utilize WordPress and what we offer for internal training because they like ownership rather than going to one of the more SaaS-based corporate training platforms, because they really like the idea of ownership of the platform. But when you're not dealing with direct membership, but you're dealing with a return on investment around training, internal training. Have you helped in those scenarios, and have you got any insight if you have been involved in that, and by your background you might have done, how do you develop a return on investment where it's not such a clear cut scenario?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't necessarily worked with people in that capacity. I've used different learning management softwares, right, when I was in corporate. But I would really then look at kind of like the usage metrics and then what people are getting out of it. If a large corporation is using it, because they're the client in that instance, and they need to make sure that they're getting their return for what they're paying for. And maybe it's how often people are using it, how much people are getting through. Maybe they have like little quizzes or something at the end to determine, is the information sticking with that individual. And so those types of things are things I would think to look at. But I think for that instance, and then for people who have the kind of more traditional online memberships, having that customer data is so important to understand what's working and what's not working. And I think that is sometimes overlooked, right? Because people focus on, let me just get people into the program or into the membership, when it's a lot cheaper to retain a customer and get them to kind of purchase something else than to find brand new customers. And so focusing on kind of after the fact and how the membership's performing is very, very important.
Yeah, because we got Rob Rowling, the joint founder of Drip, and a number of other startups, and also he is the head of a VC funding, Tiny Seeds, and he's a personal friend of mine. He agreed to be a speaker on the second day, and I was asked by a couple of people, why did you ask him? And because I see the mythology of Bootstrap around a lot of the mythology of a minimum viable product, very linked to a membership site, because I see a lot of our clientele, not all of them, but a lot of them, they actually want to build what I call a War and Peace first membership course.
Yeah.
Where they literally, it's extremely detailed, an enormous amount of value with loads of add-ons, and it's like goes on for 4 or 5 weeks, and there's loads of modules and reading. And I tell them, calm down. I know you think this is going to be the road to success, and it has its right moment. But you're gonna, if you really cut it down and go for what I call a minimum viable course and get your first batch of students, you're going to learn so much from that first batch that even though you make educated assumptions, they are only assumptions. You need the data, you need the feedback from that first batch of students, and then you can make decisions. What do you think about that, what I've just outlined?
Yeah, I totally agree, because the feedback from the students may kind of push you in a slightly different direction that ends up being what the people actually need and want, and you maybe didn't even think of it, right? Or maybe it's the messaging behind what's in the membership, right? When you get feedback from students of why they actually joined, maybe they're going to give you insight that you didn't have beforehand. It reminds me, when I worked in corporate, the product team would ask the clients for feedback in order to understand what they were looking for, and then also had to have new ideas, right, to share with clients beforehand to make sure that it made sense for their business. And so I think always having that two-way communication between the customer and the person creating the course or membership is really important, because it's only going to help you make it better. And you might not as well, spin your wheels and spend the time creating a membership that your customers may not actually need. Maybe they need something slightly different.
Yeah, I think this is one of the, I don't know, with the clients that you work with, this is one, and you could say this applies to any business to some extent. But I think one of the things that people really, because I feel that there's still enormous possibilities for people starting e-learning businesses, membership. I prefer the term e-learning because all membership normally involves some form of training and learning.
Yeah.
So I prefer, because I think that there's a little bit of some disparaging linkage to the word membership.
Right.
It's a bit like saying your influence marketing. It's really very effective, and we're all involved to some degree in influencing people. So, but it still has now some baggage to it. So But I think that one of the problems with membership sites and that is that there's so many different balls that you're trying to juggle at the same time that it's really easy to lose focus about what are the important things. And this is why having data is so important. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I hear a lot, right? The shiny object syndrome too, right? There's so many different balls in the air when juggling memberships, but also so much out there that you're being influenced by that maybe you want to try this, maybe you want to try that. And having the numbers to look at really just helps take the guesswork out of what you should be doing next or help you understand what's working and what's not working. Without looking at data, it's like you said when we first started, it's your gut, right? Or it's a lot of like emotional reaction to things. And that's how you end up spending money you shouldn't spend, right? Because maybe your sales page is converting, but if you weren't looking at the numbers, maybe you thought it wasn't, and you thought the hole was somewhere else in the funnel. And so I think it helps focus people and helps people kind of make decisions that will ultimately grow their business.
Yeah, I'll give you an example, give you a bit of personal insight. About 18 months ago, I had put on an enormous amount of weight. I was totally oblivious to an actual state where I had become obese. I had gone up to slightly over 300 pounds. I'm 6 foot and I've gone over 300 pounds. I think I've gone up to about 315 pounds, which is getting on to the higher scale of obesity, morbid. I think it's called morbid obesity. I don't know what not quite, but getting close. And one day I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh my God, I've got to do something about this. And through diet and exercise, I'm now 180 pounds.
Wow.
So I've lost over a third of my weight in an 18-month period. But I only did that because every day I weighed myself, and I still do.
Right.
And if I don't weigh myself, I go off track a little bit. And I think the same principle really applies to what you're going to try and teach our people that come to the summit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because you can feel a certain way about how your business is running and operating. But if you're not looking at the numbers, then it really is just a guess. I see, entrepreneurs and business owners all the time, buy this course or hire this coach because they think it's going to solve all their problems. But if they're not looking at the data, then they really don't know what needs to be solved. And maybe you do need a new sales page copy written for you, right? Or maybe you need new emails, but maybe you don't. Or maybe you need to focus on one of the things to understand where people are maybe falling off in the journey. Or maybe it's somewhere in the membership. Like maybe you're not getting that customer feedback and that's why people are not staying longer than they are, right? That's why the lifetime value is so low of the members, because you're not getting that feedback and understanding why people aren't staying or what they want to see.
Yeah, I also think, applying to my own personal example, if you don't have consistent data, it keeps you on track. It keeps you focused. It keeps you from veering off to something else, or you're just going by your feeling, which I think you touched about buying. It just keeps you focused, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And, I say track numbers on a weekly basis, right? Unless you're in a big launch or something's brand new and you need to make sure it's all working, but, build it into your process that once a week on Monday, I'm going to look at the data and understand what happened in the prior week and if changes need to be made, right? And then start to build that into a weekly process and make decisions based on what you're looking at, not based on how you're feeling or what your emotional self is telling you.
Because I think you're touching a great point. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You just need some help, some knowledge from an expert like you about which matrix is the most important for that business, and just frame it so you can check it every week or every month, whatever is necessary, and act on the data. But having too much data is as bad almost as having no data, isn't it?
It is, and it's overwhelming to have too much data. And it's almost never ends, right? When you're looking at an online business, there's infinite amount of data points that you could possibly look at and pull, but too much data is going to leave you in the same state of indecision and overwhelm as having no data. And so I just tell everyone, start with the most important things and then build on from there as you get more comfortable and as you determine, okay, I have, maybe this part of the funnel down, I'm going to move on to this, or I'm going to move on to this other product I'm selling, or this other side of the business. I want to start looking at those metrics.
Right, I think that's a great insight into what your presentation is going to be on the membershipsuccesssummit.com. Like I say, we've got Pat Flynn, we've got Morton Henderson, the lead instructor and trainer at LinkedIn. We've got Rob Rowling, we've got Neil Schaffner, one of the most hardworking and influential social media and influence experts in the US at the present moment. We've got a number of other speakers like Carolyn that just got a wealth of knowledge, which you'll be able to see either for free or if you buy the paid ticket at a very low cost. Plus, you'll be able to see all the interviews throughout a year when you want to watch them. And also on the third day, we're going to have some great prizes. Please join us. If you don't learn something that will help you with your online business and membership, I'd just be amazed. Because we've really got some great info here. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.